All right, welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. This is our first um, podcast in 2025. We've been out for 2 weeks over the holidays, not here, and Yancey is not able to join us today. He has provided all of the predictions and scores and things like that we will get to later on, and so we'll see those when we get there. But we have a lot to talk about today, so wanted to dive right in. We're not going to do a memory, partly because I don't think we have time, partly because Yancey's not here, and partly because we finished another rotation and we're waiting to not knock it off with one, just continue the PTI from last week, from the last time we met on that same rotation. So with that in mind, we are first going to see if we have any basketball minute topics to talk about, um, whether that's NBA or college basketball, if there's any topics
Um,
basketball
I'll
wise.
just I'll just talk about one. So last night we had the game of the year happen. So it was number one in the East Cavs, number one in the West Thunder. Went on
Mhm.
matchup last night. Both of them on 10+ game winning streaks, and it was a fantastic, exciting game. I don't think either team led by more than 7 the whole game, and eventually the Cavs was able to get a 7-point lead, at the end of the third quarter and kind of maintain that through the end of the game. And Cavs won, so they keep their winning streak going. Um, but it was a good clash of juggernauts. It was a fun game. It's only the third time in NBA history that two teams with such strong winning streaks have met in the regular season.
Yeah, the Cavs have won 11 in a row, and they're 32-4 on the regular season so far. That's just insane to be that good this late in the season to only have 4 losses. Like they're starting to creep into that Golden State Warriors territory. So
Yeah.
from 2015, 16, whatever that year was. So yeah. Yeah, that's. I was going to mention the Cavs as well in mine. I don't have anything else beyond that. Anything uh, other thing basketball related from anyone here?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's jump right in. What we're going to do is just review quickly the bowl games and who won their predictions, what was the final score, that kind of thing. Just kind of run through those. So let me share the screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this was the first one. We kind of saw this a little bit when we were predicting, but Cricket Celebration Bowl, that FCS game, Jackson State dominated over South Carolina State 28-7. We all got it. Um, if we have things to talk about any of these particular games, please interrupt me. I may mention a quick couple things about some of these games, not all of them, but we're just going to blow through a lot of these though. Uh, South Alabama beat Western Michigan 30-23. Again, we all got that one right. It was a little closer than maybe we thought it was going to be, but that's bowl game for you. Speaking about a fun game, that Frisco Bowl, Memphis did beat West Virginia 42-37 in a back and forth game. West Virginia almost came all the way back, rallied from a far down in order to make it a game, but Memphis was able to pull away. And again, we all got that one right. Um, as far as the Boca Raton Bowl, James Madison pulled a 27-17 win. This was the first one we differed on, and Yancey was left behind there as the other three of us got James Madison correct. The Art of Sport LA Bowl, we all got it correct when UNLV just dominated Cal. Cal has a really good offense, but UNLV's defense has been really good. They were good in this game, 24-13 over Cal. The R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. This was the one that I was left on the outside. Sam Houston beat Georgia Southern 31-26. The other three of you got it right, and I was left alone. The Cure Bowl. Cody was left alone this time as Ohio got that win over Jacksonville State 30-27. At this point, Dustin was still undefeated. So Dustin had got them all right up until this next one. the Gasparilla Bowl. This one, I was the only one that got it right. All of you said Tulane would win. I took Florida, and Florida dominated from beginning to end, 33-8 over Tulane, and so felt good about that one. Our first playoff first round game, Notre Dame. That score 27-17 looks closer than it was. Notre Dame dominated that game over Indiana, and Dustin and I didn't get that one right. Yancey and Cody did. So that second playoff game, Yancey was the only one that picked SMU. The rest of us picked correctly in this case. Penn State winning 38-10 in another just beatdown of a team in the playoff. The next one we all got right, but it was a heck of or not this one. Sorry, I was thinking of the next one. We all got right. Texas beating Clemson pretty handily, 38-24. Clemson kind of made it a game in the second half, but Texas just pulled away, 38-24. And then Ohio State really had the domination of that whole first round, just handing it to Tennessee, 42-17 over the Volunteers in that first round. So all four home teams won in that first playoff game where they were playing at their home stadiums. And so obviously home field advantage had a lot to play there. Do any of you want to talk about any of those playoff games or that as a whole?
I think as a whole, I'll just mention, after all this happened, there's a lot of some of the comments I saw about, oh yeah, see, these other teams should have been in there. And that's definitely not fair. These teams earned their spot to be there. They are worthy to be there. I think it was Troy Aikman. I saw him say a quote, like, we're always talking about, oh, were they right one to be there after the game has been played, after the beatdown happened. For example, there's plenty of teams across all sports that make it to the final championship, whether it be Super Bowl or World Series, that get absolutely blown out. Were those teams not worthy to be there? They made their way all through the playoff to be there. These teams made their way all through the regular season and were selected, out of 12 to be there. They're definitely worthy to be there.
I'll second all that. It's just it's annoying to me when people want to throw that card of belonging or not belonging, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more as well later on. But it's just the way sports go. It doesn't matter even what sport it is. It can be other sports other than football, but it happens. It'll just happen, and it happens to everyone at some point. So yeah. Anyways, I just basically want to agree with you on that, Dustin.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to bowl games, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, we were all correct with a beatdown. UTSA destroying Coastal Carolina 44-15 in that game. We were all correct there. The next one, we were split, and Cody and Yancey got it correct, of Northern Illinois beating Fresno State 28-20 in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. The next one, Cody was the only one that got it right. We all thought that South Florida traveling all the way, literally more than halfway around the world to get to Honolulu would have got them down, but they showed up in a big way, beating San Jose State 41-39. Cody was the only one to get that one right. The Sports Bowl, we were all correct, although it was closer than we thought. Pittsburgh lost their last 6 games of the season. They went 7-0 and then 0-6, and we all predicted that to happen, although it was close, 48-46. And then we all also predicted the Kansas State beating of Rutgers, although that was also close, 44-41. Cody was left on the outside on this next one, where Arkansas State beat Bowling Green 38-31. Although I will mention, we talked about Bowling Green's tight end, Harold Fannin, being the best in the country. He had a crazy game. He had 18 catches in that game for almost 200 yards and a touchdown. He showed up. He was probably the MVP of that game, even on the losing side. But he'll be an NFL pick. The Armed Forces Bowl, we all correctly picked Navy to beat Oklahoma. This was a situation we had talked about it philosophy-wise in the past, where Oklahoma went for a 2-point conversion to win the game and missed it, and so Navy won. So, and we're not going to get into this philosophy now, but I would do that again. I wouldn't regret that. So I wouldn't. So yeah. Anyway, Cody was the only one to get the next one right as well. Vanderbilt beating Georgia Tech 35-27. We all talked up Georgia Tech, but Cody was pretty confident in Vanderbilt. There you go. So, and lastly, we all said Texas Tech would beat Arkansas, but guess what? Those Hogs pulled it out 39-26. So, even though they lost like all of their team, they still showed up and won that game. The Holiday Bowl, we all correctly predicted Syracuse to beat Washington State, 52-35. Similar to just the last one, we all predicted Texas A&M to beat USC, but that didn't happen. USC pulled the upset over Texas A&M, 35-31. Dustin, you were left behind on this one when UConn did beat North Carolina 27-14. The rest of us correctly predicted the Tar Heels to be more focused on what's going on next year than this bowl game. So the Pinstripe Bowl, we all again predicted Boston College and all were wrong when Nebraska won that game 20-15. We were split on this one. Dustin and I got it right with TCU just annihilating Louisiana 34-3. And then we were split here where again Dustin and I got it right when Iowa State beat Miami 42-41 in a thriller of a game.
That was a good game.
Yeah. Arizona Bowl, Dustin, you were the only one correct here with Miami of Ohio beating the Rams of CSU in a pretty easy 43-17 win. And then Dustin and Yancey got it right on the Military Bowl when East Carolina beat NC State 26-21. There was a huge brawl at the end of that game. Just a bunch of punches thrown, referees that had to get in the mix of it, and referee that was bleeding from the head that had to call the game at the end. So a huge brawl at the end of that. They're separated by about 15 miles, so they hate each other. Just kind of that situation. And then this next one, we all picked Colorado, and BYU just blew them out, 36-14. Colorado was never in that game, and so that was a surprise to obviously all of us, but a good surprise, I thought, for obviously from my perspective, but a great season from BYU.
That was a crazy game. I was really just surprised and impressed.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the Pop Tarts Bowl, which was just kind of funny antics, from all the mascots, Pop Tart mascots. That was kind of fun. But from a game perspective, like, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little too critical. So Cam Ward, he plays in the first half in order to break records, meet NIL deals, and then sits down in the second half and his team loses the game. And it's like that. I don't know. Maybe he can explain that to a team scout who will interview him, or maybe the team scouts won't care. But, as it sends the message of I care more about my personal accolades than I do about team victories.
So the Bills did that last weekend when they walked Josh Allen out for just to keep his starting streak alive. He was in for one snap and then he went out and sat the rest of the game. Is that the same situation, or is this? I mean, obviously they're continuing to play. They have playoff games, but so
yeah, I think that's slightly different in that, the record that he was going for was a starting streak. How many starts that's. If it was he needed 100 yards in order to pass, Drew Brees' record, and so he got those 100 yards and then went and sat down. That I feel like that'd be different. Versus you look at Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. They said, "Hey man, you got 100 yards to get the record," and he says, "No, I'm gonna rest to get ready to win."
yeah, I like that message too. Even though that record would be cool to hit. Yeah. Okay, Independence Bowl. We were all correct here with Army beating up on the losing record, Louisiana Tech, 27-6. And then Cody, you said SEC bias would come into play here. You didn't want to go for the SEC team, and the rest of us were right with Missouri beating Iowa 27-24 in that game. So speaking of SEC bias, though, in this next one, the ReliaQuest Bowl, we all picked Alabama, and we all were wrong. Michigan's defense just showed up big in that game and shut down the Alabama Crimson Tide 19-13.
That was awesome.
So, yeah. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I was the one left out here. I picked an upset. I almost got it. Louisville barely escaped that one, 35-34. The next one, we all picked South Carolina. We all, again, were wrong when Illinois won that one, 21-17. The next one, we all were right in the Texas Bowl with LSU beating Baylor 44-31. We were all correct in the next one as well. Ole Miss beating up on Duke 52-20. Pretty easy win for the Rebels. And we were all, this whole slide, we were all in agreement everywhere, and we all were right, with Texas State beating North Texas in the First Responder Bowl and Minnesota beating Virginia Tech in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And then the last bowl game, Cody and I were correct with Buffalo really just stopping Liberty everywhere, 26-7, winning that game. Then the Fiesta Bowl. Me and Yancey were correct here with Penn State. Pretty much, their defense was fantastic. Ashton Genty still got over 100 yards, but he had to rush almost 40 times to do that, to get barely over 100 yards. They stopped him cold over that whole game, and that's what won them the game. You stop their best player, the only one that's really doing a lot, and that's what happens. 31-14, Penn State wins that game. The next one was a thriller double overtime game between Texas and Arizona State. Texas had almost a 30-point lead in the first half. Arizona State comes all the way back, takes it to overtime, and then back and forth in overtime, and then a bad interception to end it from Arizona State. 39-31, Texas wins that one. Cody again left in the dark there, as the rest of us picked Texas to win it.
I was pretty close there. It was a fantastic game. I was so mad. How do you let him score on a fourth and 13? How do you let that happen? And he was wide open. It was so frustrating because it was just that play. That was the game right there,
Yeah.
And but Cam Scatterboo is fun to watch, and he's going to be a bruiser in the NFL.
Yeah. The next one, we all picked Oregon, and Ohio State just blew the doors off of them. 41-21, got revenge for earlier in the season when Oregon beat Ohio State. So got revenge and won that game really easily. They were up 31-0 at one point, and just obviously too much to handle at that point. Dustin, the only one, picked Georgia, the only one wrong, and in the Sugar Bowl quarterfinal there. Notre Dame just Georgia couldn't do anything without their quarterback Carson Beck. Just nothing was happening from Georgia's perspective, and Notre Dame's defense shut it down, 23-10.
Which, by the way, just as other news, Carson Beck has actually said he's entering the transfer portal instead of going to the draft.
Yeah, I saw that too. What's crazy about these quarterfinal games is the lower seed won every game. So numbers 1 through 4 all lost. So the semifinal games are between 5, 6, 7, and 8. So,
it makes you wonder, and that's honestly a question I have: is having a bye, 3 weeks bye, is that a disadvantage? Because that one would have to wonder that. All 4 of them with byes lost.
I think it's also the way that it was set up, the way that Oregon did not get a good matchup. Being the number 1 seed, they have to play Ohio State. It should have been something where they would have to play either Notre Dame or something like that. I like the idea of reseeding once you get through that round, and so they would play the lowest seed left, which may have been Ohio State anyway. I don't know, but it just Ohio State's really hot. So
well, the way it worked out, they were playing the lower seeds. It was 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus
That's
6.
True.
So it worked out that way still. Anyway.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think it was set up in the bracket to be that way, like most playoff brackets are.
Right, but I guess let's say SMU beats Penn State. Like SMU would have had to go on to play Boise State instead, and so in terms of an upset, if an upset had happened, I would have liked to see a reseeding at that point. So, yeah.
I know that in the NFL, that's how it works, right? As they
Yeah.
reseed that way. I've never liked that because it's, I don't know, kind of like a congratulations, you weren't supposed to do that. Now we're gonna try to knock you out again. So I've never liked that idea.
Yeah, sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna add to that I'm not sure how I feel about it because I have mixed feelings. I was talking to Dad about it a month or so back, and my view, and I think everyone's view is you're rewarding the number one seed. Good job. Now you're gonna play this person. And Dad's view is, or are you disadvantaging the team who upset? And so I never thought of it that way. I said, okay. I mean, so then the question is it more important to reward the number one seed, or is it more of a slap in the face to disadvantage the team who wasn't supposed to win? And it can go either way. In my opinion, giving them a bye week is already a reward enough. Giving them a bye week is a reward enough. That should be their reward. So I feel like that's been my opinion. Give them the bye week. That's their reward. If a team upsets a team, then hey, good on you. You've earned this spot to play them now. Kind of idea.
Yeah. I can
Yeah,
agree with that.
Cody, your question on is a bye week a disadvantage, and I think it depends on how you treat it. That if you go into the bye week with the mentality of we got to get healthy, we're gonna try to get to our top physicality in order to prepare for that. I think that's a disadvantage. You've got to be football ready, and that's mental, not physical. I want you those 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, to be having contact practices, to be playing game speed, because you've got to be just as ready as your opponent. And so I don't know how Oregon or Georgia prepared for these games, or Boise State, or whoever it was, but like that's I'm not judging how they prepared, but to answer your question, I think that it matters how you approach it mentally.
Think it was a little bit of both because I mean you're thinking about the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes just had a high ankle sprain uh, uh, before obviously coming to play in that game a couple weeks ago, and then sitting out last week because they already got the number one seed. In that case, you got to get Patrick Mahomes healthy. You got to make sure that ankle doesn't bother him, and so I think there's a little bit of both there. But you definitely don't want him to look like he's coming off the couch after 3 weeks of eating potato chips. So.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You don't want them to show up on game time and say, okay, where's the playbook?
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Now the game that's currently going on, and I saw a score and forgot what it was.
It's
So I
currently
think
it's 10-3
yeah,
Penn State right now.
Penn State at the half up 10-3. I was the only one that picked Penn State. The other three of you took Notre Dame in this one. So far, it looks defensive battle, and Penn State has the advantage at halftime. So, and the next one we get to pick right now. Yancey already sent us that Texas. He has Texas beating Ohio State in this one, and the Cotton Bowl Classic, the other semifinal game between Texas and Ohio State. By the way, this is essentially a home game for Texas. It's in Arlington, literally down the road from where Texas plays. It's going to be a literal home game for Texas. So many Texas fans are going to be there. Ohio State fans will be there too because it's the college football playoff. But it's much easier for Texas to travel the 20 minutes from Austin over to Arlington or however far it is. I don't think it's a little longer than 20 minutes, but anyway, so the rest of us here, Yancey went first. So Cody, you get to go next.
Well, in this game, it's funny. I think I'd prefer this Penn State Notre Dame game to be the national championship, but so I'm not sure I want either team to win. But the thing is that after seeing Ohio State just blow doors off of Oregon, I don't know if having a home field advantage matters for Texas. It'll probably be a little bit better of a game, but Ohio State's going to win this one, probably by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Dustin.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I agree, Cody, that Ohio State has really proved me wrong, and I think proved themselves a lot. I think it's going to be close. I do think it's going to be close, but Ohio State will win by its score.
I'm going to split us. I'm thinking that home field advantage is actually going to be a thing in this case. It was in the first round. Um, while it's not being played in Texas's home stadium, it's down the street essentially. And I think Texas has really proven themselves as well, being able to withstand, to be able to be resilient. Ohio State may get up in this game, but I think Texas comes back, and I think Texas eventually pulls it off. They've proven to me, Texas has, that they can withstand everything. So, I also don't want a Big Ten championship as my national championship. I don't want Ohio State, Penn State. So,
Neither do I.
uh,
Neither do I. Yeah, it would be best if it's Texas and someone else. But the thing is that Texas has to have not just an answer, but a very good answer for Jeremiah Smith. He was, I mean, he's just out of his mind, and he's only a freshman, which just blows my mind. And so, but they have to have a very good answer if they even want a chance at this game with Jeremiah Smith.
yeah. But you could say the same thing about Ohio State. They need an answer to what's the guy's name that scored on that wide
Yeah.
open fourth quarter game and
Is
fourth
it
down.
is it
The tight
Golden?
end, wasn't it?
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Gunnar
it's a
Helm. Gunnar Helm,
Golden.
right?
Matthew Golden. Yes,
Oh, okay.
Matthew Golden is the Texas guy that's really really good too. So I mean, it cuts both ways. Ohio State needs to have an answer to Texas's all American receiver too. So. Okay. We don't know who's playing for the national championship. We'll talk about that next week and have that preview there. By the way, these are the scores so far. There's been 44 games. Right now, Yancey and I are tied for the lead at 28. Dustin's at 27. Cody's at 26. So we're all really close.
Wow.
Obviously, though, with 3 games left and the way that we're doing it, Cody, I think it's really difficult for you to win this. So Dustin could still, but
Prove you wrong. Just kidding.
so yeah. There could be a tie, though, at the end for sure. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this one. I have another one to pull up here. Anything about college football before I move on to pro football? No? Okay. You all see my screen again.
Yes.
Okay, NFL playoffs. This is in order of how the schedule, how the games happen. So the first playoff game is the AFC 4-5 matchup between the LA Chargers and the Houston Texans in Houston on Saturday at 2:30 my time, 3:30 yours, on CBS. So a couple of things about each of these teams. The Chargers 11-6, the Texans are 10-7. Chargers have won their last 3 games to get to that 5th seed, while the Texans started the season 5-1 and have finished 5-6. So the Texans have kind of stumbled their way, backed their way into the playoffs. You can see the good and the bad here. For the Chargers, they're number 1 in points allowed. Their defense is number 1 against scoring, 17.7 points allowed. They're number 2 in turnovers on offense. They very rarely turn the ball over. They have 9 total turnovers this season, the entire season, 9 total. So they don't turn the ball over, and they don't allow teams to score on them. You forget how good a Chargers team is that can do both of those good things. However, they're 2-5 against other playoff teams that are in this, and they're 9-1 against all other teams. And so they show up and they beat bad teams, but maybe they're not that great against other good teams. So meanwhile, the Texans, number 6 in yards allowed, number 6 in defensive turnover percentage. They don't beat themselves. They're number 5 in penalties, just 7 per game. They don't beat themselves. The bad though, they have the 3rd most sacks allowed. Their offensive line is a mess, and it has been really all season. 54 sacks allowed this season. That's 3rd most. And similar to the Chargers, they're 1-5 against other playoff teams and 9-2 against all other teams. So this is a matchup between 2 teams that really have thrived beating up on bad teams and losing to good teams. And so now they're against each other. So just a couple of things pointing out here when the Texans are on offense. CJ Stroud has had his struggles this year. um, especially compared to last year. A lot of that is because of an offensive line just mess going on in front of him right now. Um, and Joe Mixon, though, over 1,000 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. Nico Collins, 1,000 yards receiving. They are beat up, though, especially at receiver. Stephon Diggs is out for the season. We saw what Tank Dell did to his leg a few weeks ago. He's out for the season. They're missing two of their best receivers. Nico Collins is about the only guy left. So they're running on steam right now, on fumes. Meanwhile, Tuli Pelotu, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. That's a dangerous trio of guys that can get to the passer, especially against an offensive line that's not playing very well. And so, meanwhile, Derwin James leads all defensive backs in sacks this year, 5.5 sacks. Tarheeb Still is a rookie with leads the team in 4 interceptions. Meanwhile, when the Chargers are on offense, Justin Herbert has thrown 3 interceptions all year. 23 touchdowns and 3 picks this year. This has been his best season of his career. Almost 66%, almost 4,000 yards. Again, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks. Being more of a game manager than he's been asked to be in the past, because Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football, and he has 2 guys that do it well, and J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, both healthy, both playing now. Lad McConkey, that rookie for the Chargers, has been really good, over 1,000 yards receiving. Meanwhile, the Texans defense is pretty good. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, both over 10 sacks each. Derek Stingley, Kalen Bullock, both have 5 picks this year. So that Texans defense is legit as well, matched up against this Chargers offense. So with that in mind, we just left off. We see Yancey's prediction there. He has the Texans winning 28-14 in this matchup at home. We're going to go over to Dustin since Cody started last. So Dustin, pick a team and a score.
Yeah, I think that the Chargers are bringing a lot more momentum into this game than the Texans will. So Chargers, I think, are going to run away with it. I'm going to say, let's go 35-17 Chargers.
Okay. I'm also taking the Chargers to win this game. I think, like you said, Dustin, they're bringing all the momentum. I think they are a better matchup than the Texans in most areas. The Chargers defense is going to just be a nightmare for the Houston offense in this game, and so I don't see the Texans scoring more than a touchdown in this game. So I don't think the Chargers are going to score a whole lot. I think it's going to be 24-10. So Cody, your turn.
Well, Yancey is being left out. I'm also going Chargers. I think the Chargers are really just probably the better team here, and they're going to win this game. I'm going to say 27-20. So it'll be a close game.
Okay. On to the next one. Does anyone want to take us through the slides, or should I do them all, or do one of you want to take this one?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Steelers and Ravens on Saturday at 6:00 my time. This is obviously a divisional matchup between these two teams. They split the season series 1-1. The Ravens have won their last 4 games in a row and 5 of their last 6. The Steelers have not. They've lost their last 4 games in a row. Steelers have. So the Steelers have really backed their way into the playoffs as well. This is another tale of momentum versus non-momentum. However, the Steelers are really good at forcing turnovers. They're number 1 in the league. They've forced 33 this season. That's more than 1 per game. They're also really good in stopping the run, which the Ravens obviously like to do a lot. They're number 1 in rushing yards. So 187.6 yards per game. They're also number 1 in rushing yards allowed on defense. They're number 3 in points per game. They're number 1 in yards per game. They're just a good all-around team. Again, the Steelers have lost the last 4 in a row, and they allow the pass a lot. The Ravens also allow the pass a lot. So we can see a lot of passing yards in this game. When the Ravens are on offense, Lamar Jackson, believe it or not, what all the hype is about Josh Allen winning the MVP, Lamar Jackson has had an even better year this year than he had last year when he won the MVP. You see, he 41 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions this season for Lamar Jackson, and 4,000 yards passing, and another 900 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. He's become the only player on this list. He is the only person who has thrown for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns and thrown less than 5 interceptions. The only guy ever to do that. Um, and so Lamar is playing out of his mind, even better than his MVP season last year. We talked about maybe Derrick Henry isn't a great fit in this offense. Well, that isn't true anymore. Derrick Henry almost rushed for 2,000 yards this season as well, 16 touchdowns. And Zay Flowers is actually not playing in this game. I learned that not too long ago, and so I didn't have time to update this. He has been ruled out of this game, so that's a big thing for the passing offense. Obviously, over here on the Steelers defense, Patrick Queen, Deshaun Elliott, Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, 11 and a half sacks, kind of a down year for him, but still can get to the quarterback. When the Steelers are on offense, Russell Wilson, those numbers aren't bad, 16 touchdowns and 5 picks, although I think 4 of those 5 picks have come in the last 3 weeks. And so he hasn't played well the last few weeks. George Pickens is their best receiver by far. Najee Harris, a good running back. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Nnamdi Madubuike over on the Ravens defense. Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe each have more than 10 sacks this season. Marlon Humphrey has had 6 interceptions as well. So over here, Yancey already picked again. He said a 34-24 Ravens win. I'm up next. I'm not speaking for you guys yet, but I smell a sweep coming here. But I'm going to take the Ravens in this one as well, and I'm not going to put it that close that Yancey did. I think this is a 34-6 final score.
Wow.
I don't trust the Steelers at all. Cody.
Ouch. Just like that surprised me. I agree. The Ravens are going to win. But and I was going to say it won't be that close, but I guess it'll be way closer than you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's probably be about 31-17 is my guess. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think that the Steelers, something they're going to be able to do, especially under Mike Tomlin, is just make this a defensive grind game instead of a high scoring game. If it becomes a high scoring game, they lose. And so I think that the Steelers are going to be able to pull off their game plan to make it a defensive game with lots of kicking, but ultimately it's not going to win the game. Ravens win 16-15.
That would be a fun game to watch, especially if you like defense. So, okay, next one, Broncos and Bills. Sunday, 11 a.m. my time, noon yours, on CBS. This is the Broncos' first playoff appearance since winning the Super Bowl after the 2015 season. So it's been almost 10 years since the Broncos have been back here. They are back this year, and you see they're really good on defense. They're number 2 in pressure rate, 27% pressure rate. Number 1 in sacks. They lead the NFL in sacks, 63 this season. Number 3 in points allowed. Number 3 in rushing yards allowed. Obviously, when you have a really good defense and you're only 10-7, that means your offense is not very good, and that's the bad. Number 19 in yards, number 20 in passing yards. Not a great offense, but a really, really good defense from Denver. Bills, their claim to fame so far, they have defeated the number 1 seed in each conference. They beat Kansas City 30-21, and they beat the Lions 48-42. So they've beat the best team in each conference this season. Also, they're number 2 in points. They're number 1 in turnovers. They've committed 8 all season. They're also number 3 in turnovers forced, 32 this season, and number 1 in turnover percentage that they forced. 18% of their opponents' drives ended turnovers. That's the best in the NFL. The bad, they're not a very disciplined team, number 23 in penalties and number 24 in passing yards allowed. When the Bills are on offense, Josh Allen has had a great season as well. This is his 5th straight year of 40-plus touchdowns, both passing and rushing combined. 5th straight. 28 touchdowns and 6 picks this year. He has done it, finally. We talked about it at the beginning of the year. He needs to stop those turnovers. He stopped them, finally. 28 touchdowns, 6 picks this year is all. 12 rushing touchdowns as well. Good. James Cook, really good, both as a running back, over 1,000 yards rushing, and as a receiver. Broncos, again, we've talked about how good their defense is. Pat Surtain is probably the best cornerback in the NFL. I don't think there's a cornerback that's better than him this year. 4 interceptions, 11 passes defense. Those don't seem like good numbers. That's because quarterbacks literally just don't throw his way. And so he takes away part of the field there. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, all three rush the passer extremely well. Bo Nix has played really well for a rookie this year. 29 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That's really good rookie numbers, especially. And so Bo Nix has played well. Cortland Sutton has been a really good receiver. They don't have a really good running game. Javonte Williams is their leading running back with just over 500 yards rushing. Garrett Bowles has played the best season of his career. He's played every single snap. He's going to be probably a Pro Bowler this year at offensive tackle. Over on the Bills side, Ed Oliver, Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard, Gregory Rousseau, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, all of them really good tackles for loss here and sacks and tackles and all that. Just a good no-name defense essentially, but really good at what they do. So Yancey picked first again. He said a Bills win 21-7 in this case. Back over to you, Cody.
Well, the good news for the Broncos is that the Bills' home field advantage, as far as elements go, won't be too different, I feel like, because Denver can get really cold and have a lot of snow. I'm not sure if it's going to snow or not, but it's going to be cold. Denver's okay with that. So that part they don't have to worry about, but they will have to worry about the Mafia. So that sounds funny. I think that this game is going to be a little bit better than I think people realize. But I think the Bills will win this one. It's going to be 28 to 17.
All right. That's
Yeah, I'm thinking the Broncos are a lot better than anybody's ever expected or that we give them credit for, and they're going to give the Bills a fight the whole way. And my prediction is Broncos are leading in the fourth quarter, and with some late game heroics from Josh Allen, they score a touchdown in the final minutes. Bills win 27-23.
I'm kind of along your guys' same line of thinking. I think the Broncos are going to scare the Bills in this game. I don't think they'll win it. I think the Bills will eventually win in the fourth quarter, like you said, Dustin. But I think the Broncos defense is going to just give them headaches all game long. And so this is a situation where the Bills just survive and advance. This is a 17-14 game. And if the Broncos had more of an offense, they would win this game, but they won't. So because they don't. All right. All 3 AFC games happen to be before all 3 NFC games this year. So on to the NFC. This is the 7-2 matchup in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers against the Philadelphia Eagles. Sunday at 2:30 on Fox. Packers lost the final 2 games of the season to drop into the 7th seed. Eagles had a 10-game winning streak this season. For 2 months, they didn't lose. They did finally lose a couple of weeks ago against the Commanders. But for the Packers, they're number 5 in yards and number 5 in yards allowed. So a good offense and a good defense. Number 4 in turnovers forced. The bad, they commit a lot of penalties. They're not very disciplined. The Eagles are a great rushing team, a great running team. Obviously, we'll talk about one of their players here in a second, but number 2 in rushing yards, number 2 in points allowed on defense, number 1 in yards allowed. They're the best defense in terms of yards allowed. That's a whole credit to Vic Fangio as he's come over this season and completely turned this defense over. Number 1 in passing yards allowed as well. The bad, they don't pass the ball very well. Number 29 in passing yards because they run the ball the whole time. When the Eagles are on offense, Saquon Barkley, we just talked about him recently. He had over 2,000 yards rushing. I think he's become only the 8th player in history to have over 2,000 yards rushing, 8th or 12th. I'm getting my numbers wrong. And he was 100 yards short of breaking Eric Dickerson's record. And so, but he's healthy now. Took the week off. So 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts also 14 rushing yards in addition to 18 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions. They have a pair of good receivers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, combined have almost 1,900 yards receiving. When the Packers are or when the Eagles are on offense, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, two really good linebackers there. Edgerrin Cooper's in running for defensive rookie of the year with the way he's played. He won't win it, but he's in the running. Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney has been a ball hawk, 8 interceptions, leads the NFL with 8 picks there. So watch out for him when you're throwing the ball. When the Packers are on offense, Jordan Love struggled with interceptions this year, 11 interceptions, but 25 touchdown passes. A couple of good receivers, Jaden Reed, their tight end Tucker Kraft, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns each. Josh Jacobs, also 1,300 yards rushing and 15 touchdowns on the season, has been a really good running back in his own right. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 6 interceptions this year. Darius Slay has played well. Reed Blankenship, 4 picks on his own. Zach Bond has been like, he might be if the NFL had a most improved player award, it might go to Zach Bond. He was picked up by the Eagles to be a special teams guy, and instead he leads the NFL in tackles. 151 tackles, 11 for a loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 pick. He's going to be an all-pro this season, and he's been just a huge find for Vic Fangio and that Eagles team. So over to Dustin, Packers and Eagles.
Yeah, I think that this is a Philadelphia just absolute slaughter. They win. It's never close, 30-13.
I was thinking along similar lines. I think the Packers are going to put up a fight late, but the Eagles will have scored too much to begin with. The Packers will make it look a little easier than it was, but I'm going to take a 38-24 final score.
I think that the Packers will keep it close in the first half, and the second half is when the Eagles pull away. So the Eagles will win the game. I think halftime it's probably going to be 17-14 Eagles, and then the game will be finished. I say 31-21.
Okay. All right. Commanders Buccaneers, the 3-6 matchup, Sunday at 6:00, primetime game on NBC. This is the Commanders' best regular season since 1991. They won the Super Bowl that year, by the way, just for reference. 12-5 record. That's their most wins since that Super Bowl year in '91. They've been great in points. Number 5 in points, number 3 in rushing yards, number 3 in passing yards allowed. They allow people to run all over them though. Number 30 in rushing yards allowed. They don't turn the ball over all that well on defense either. Number 24 there. The Buccaneers are hot. They've won 6 of their last 7 games to win the division and get into the playoffs. Number 3 in yards, number 4 in points, number 3 in passing yards. They don't stop the pass very well on defense though. They're excellent on offense this year. When the Buccaneers are on offense, we talked about Baker Mayfield having his best year last year. That was blown away by what he did this year. 41 touchdowns. He did throw 16 interceptions, which is a lot. So he does tend to throw interceptions, but 41 touchdowns and over 4,500 yards passing, by far his best season, eclipsing last year's best season. Mike Evans barely by 4 yards eclipsed 1,000 yards for I think it's the 12th straight season. Every season of his career, he's been over 1,000 yards. This year was barely that. But Bucky Irving has a chance. If the offensive rookie of the year isn't going to go to the other side, to Jaden Daniels, it might go to Bucky Irving, who's had over 1,100 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. They've refound their rushing offense, which was worst in the NFL last year, and it's middle of the pack this year because of what Bucky Irving has done. The Commanders' offense looks really good with their 2 linebackers. Bobby Wagner doesn't age. He's still putting up a great season after great season. 132 tackles, 10 for a loss. Frankie Louvu has been excellent as well with 99 tackles and 8 sacks. By the way, all 6 of those guys on the Commanders side that you see are all new players this year. None of them were on the Commanders roster last year, and all 6 of them have been excellent. So it's a whole. The Commanders were the biggest team in free agency, and all 6 of those guys are new. One of them's a rookie, and Mike Sainristil. But when the Commanders are on offense, Jaden Daniels is almost certainly the rookie of the year on offense. 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions this year. Terry McLaurin has had a great season with him with Daniels throwing him the ball. Daniels is also a running threat, 800 yards, 6 touchdown runs. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler are also really good running the ball. Levante David also doesn't age like Bobby Wagner, just a great linebacker as well. Vita Vea stuffs the middle. A couple of good players there as well. So I think it's over to me. And I feel this one is going to be mixed. You see Yancey there with the Commanders win at 24-21. The Buccaneers are hot. I think the Commanders have been hot all year. But I think this is the closest game of all six. I think this is an overtime game. I'm taking the Commanders though to win on the road. I think this is a 23-20 overtime win. Cody?
So I've been sticking with the Commanders ever since the bracket came out, and I still am. So I think the Commanders are winning this game. Although the Bucks are hot right now and they're running on some high momentum, I actually think the Commanders play better than the Bucks do. I think they win this game. I'm going to say 26 to let's go 18, 26-18.
Maybe we won't have a mix here. Dustin?
Little one. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe in the Bucks. I do. I think that we're gonna see the game of the year, though. This is gonna be the fun one. Buccaneers win, absolute shootout, 43-38.
All right, and then the last one, the Vikings and Rams, the NFC wildcard 4-5. The Rams did a weird thing. They rested starters in after they won the NFC West, even though they had a chance to do exactly what they did, to fall, if they lost, to fall down to the 4th seed and have to play the Vikings. If they won, they could have avoided the Vikings and played the Commanders. I don't understand that. Playing the hot team like the Vikings, but I'm not the coach of the. I'm not Sean McVay. That's what he chose to do. Anyway, the Rams won 5 of their last 6 games. They lost the last one to the Seahawks in that finale to win the NFC West, but they're hot beyond that game. Number 5 in turnovers, just 14 total. They're also the most disciplined team in the NFL. Number 1 in fewest penalties, 5.4 per game. The bad, they don't run the ball well on offense, and they don't stop offense very well. Number 26. The Vikings, on the other hand, 14-3. No one saw that coming. No one. But one of their 3 losses did come against the Rams, and so that might be important. That was that horrible face mask against Sam Darnold in the end zone against the Rams, and so it was that game. 30-20 they lost. The Vikings have been great in a lot of areas, mostly on defense. Number 1 in turnovers forced, along with the Steelers. They tied with the Steelers, total of 33 this year. Number 1 in blitz percentage. They blitz more than a third of the time. They are just running guys at quarterbacks, and it's knocked most quarterbacks they've played off their rhythm this whole season. Brian Flores is going to be a head coach next year because of what he's done on that defense. Number 28 in pass yards allowed, though they're not great. I think part of that is blitzing. Sometimes when you blitz, you leave some guys open, and sometimes that happens where a good passing unit. So that could be bad against the Rams. I don't know, but looking at when the Rams are on offense, Matthew Stafford, another pretty solid season, 20 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. 2 great receivers, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Kyron Williams has rushed for almost 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. On the Viking side, again, we talked about these guys down here at the bottom. Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard have been excellent additions. They're both new this year to the Vikings, 11.5 sacks and 12 sacks, respectively. Andrew Van Ginkel leads the NFL with 2 pick sixes this year. He's tied for the lead. I think there's a couple that have had 2 pick sixes, but he's one of them on screen passes, both of them, where he just reads it, picks it off, and runs in the end zone with it. And so need to watch that. Byron Murphy has 6 picks this year as well. When the Vikings are on offense, Sam Darnold has had a renaissance season, proving all season long that he can be a star quarterback. We were all waiting for that other foot to drop, right? Sometime this season, that maybe Sam Darnold wasn't as good as he's playing. When is it going to happen? Week 6, week 7? It never happened. He's just been good all season long. 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, over 4,300 yards passing. Justin Jefferson has had a great season as well, 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. Jordan Addison adds another 9 scores. Aaron Jones has rushed for over 1,000 yards. I mean, this is a great offense against a Rams defense that's kind of um, up in the air. Braden Fisk has a really good season trying to replace Aaron Donald. He's led the team with 8.5 sacks. Kobe Turner has 8 sacks as well. Christian Roseman, 135 tackles. But so we see Yancey picking the Vikings 34-28. I think we're back over to Cody.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I actually think this is going to be the closest game. Surprisingly, I think the Rams. They're as much as I hate it, they're sneaky good. They really are, and they shouldn't be as good as they are. I feel like, and it probably comes down to Puka Nacua. He's just an absolute game-changing player, and plays like there's never anyone guarding him. That's what it looks like. So, I think this is going to be a good close game. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I do think the Vikings win this game, but I think it's a lot closer than perhaps anyone really thinks. I think it's going to be, I like the 34 score. I'm going to say 34-31.
Yeah. Dustin?
I think Sam Darnold will probably have some struggles in this game. Maybe throw a couple picks, lose a fumble, things like that. But ultimately, it's the Vikings defense that's going to be able to win the game. Vikings win 20-16.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked up Sam Darnold a little bit in my presentation there. He's had a couple of games where he's reverted a little bit, I guess, but he's always been able to come out on the other end. Uh, and usually it's the very next game. And so the way he played against the Lions wasn't great last week. He threw, I think, 2, maybe even 3 interceptions last week against the Lions. Didn't play very well in that game. I think he bounces back actually in this one. And I think, like you said, Dustin, that Vikings offense is going to give Sean McVay and the Rams offense some struggles. They didn't in the first game. I think they will in this one. I do think the Vikings win this one fairly comfortably, although not blowout style. I think they do win comfortably. I'm going to say 30-17. Okay, that is the wild card round. Obviously, the 2 number 1 seeds don't play in this round. They both get byes, the Chiefs and the Lions, until the divisional round. But anything else you want to say about the NFL playoffs? I think we only have 2 instances of these 6 games where we have a difference in opinion. One is this one where Dustin picked the Buccaneers, the rest of us picked the Commanders. I think the only other one is where Yancey picked the Texans when the rest of us picked the Chargers. So we're all pretty much in agreement with this wild card round. So beyond those 2 games, and there's just one difference in each of those games. So, all right, I'm going to stop share. Dustin, do you even remember what your PTI questions were from a month ago? And if they're relevant still?
I looked it up, and there's just one left. We've discussed the
Okay.
others, so let's talk it real quick and finish out by 9. So the question is regarding the safety. So when the offensive player gets tackled or in the end zone or the ball goes out, whatever it is, right? With a defensive safety worth 2 points, and that to me, my opinion, that doesn't seem equal to the accomplishment that it is to get the offense team to go backwards into their own touchdown. And so my proposal would be that if a safety occurs at the fault of the offense, such as, what was it, Dan Orlovsky running out the back of the end zone, that safety is worth 2 points. Or a holding call in the end zone, that's a safety worth 2 points. But if you tackle the player in their own end zone, that's a defensive touchdown. I see no reason why that should not be scored as a defensive touchdown. 6 points, you get to kick an extra point or go for 2 even if you wanted to, and then you kick it off like normal, give the ball back to the other team. That's my opinion on that, and I wanted to get feedback from you.
I have absolutely no problem with that at all. I think, yeah, I was worried at first when you mentioned this, if in those situations, like when a team is up by 3 points or something like that at the end of the game, and they can either punt it to the other team or run out of the back of their end zone and win by 1. Like there is that situation, and I still like that kind of an offensive fault of the offense, still 2 points. But I do like the situation where you tackle a guy in the end zone. Technically, I mean, you don't necessarily have the ball, but the ball is in the end zone when the play in your end zone where you're supposed to score at the end of the play when the play is dead. I'm fine with kind of that 6 points and then getting rid of the whole kicking off to your team and then having to just like a normal kickoff. You've scored 7 points and kick it off. I have no problem with that that proposal, and I would be behind it 100%. I don't have any adjustments to it.
I think I'm with Scott. I don't think I see any reason why it would be a bad rule to add. Um, I don't know if I really see like why it would have to be changed either. So like I guess I'm kind of indifferent. It wouldn't bother me as a change. Um, I think that it would make it more exciting. Might be the only difference. Safeties can definitely change momentum, but defensive touchdowns not only change momentum, but I mean, it literally change outcome of the entire game possibly. So it would have to make offenses be more careful, I think, than they already are. But other than that, I don't see any problems with it. I just don't know if I'd be like, oh yes, they're changing it. Be like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. The way I look at it is tackling the other team in their own end zone. A punt that you pin them down at the 2-yard line is celebrated, but for what purpose? To only get 2 points out of it, maybe potentially. Whereas the other team can get 3 points from 60 yards away in a field goal. Like it doesn't seem like it's equivalent in the achievement that it is.
I mean, you're convincing me more and more, Dustin. I like this. I like that change proposal. I don't know if it would ever happen. I don't know if anyone like you'd hope that there are people that are thinking about this in the NFL that are thinking about all these different kind of rules changes that but so you would hope that people would be bringing these up to people, and a lot of the NFL owners are pretty conservative in the sense that they don't want to change what's already there. So getting things to change is usually really difficult and takes years in the NFL because NFL owners have to approve everything, and a lot of them just like things the way they are. But I would hope that some of these changes that we've suggested, me and you now, Dustin, over the last couple of months, could at least be discussed. So.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, one topic, I guess, wrapping up the NFL season. So just one topic, and it's maybe crapping on the Jets again. So I don't know if you've seen Aaron Rodgers' numbers for the season. He had 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,800 yards. I think if you had told any person that he had those numbers, that person would say, "Yeah, the Jets are an 11-win team." But they're not. They're a 5-win team. So Aaron Rodgers played quite well looking at this, except for the doing his job of winning games.
I've been preparing, for the NFL debrief that we do at the end of the season, just kind of updating the PowerPoint presentations with numbers. And I did the Jets last night, I think. And so the numbers surprised me to see, what, from a purely statistical point of view, Aaron Rodgers played just fine. There were no problems with the way that he played, numbers wise. And you look at they were relatively healthy all season as well. They didn't lose a whole lot of players to injury. Most of them were still there, played 17 games. They just sucked. They were horrible. They were the worst team in the NFL in penalties. They were the least disciplined team. They were not coached well, and they got worse once they fired their coach. And just all these things that you can look at their numbers, and they're just, yeah. There's a lot of other things I could go into about why the Jets are horrible, but um, and it's not because of Aaron Rodgers' production; it's because of Aaron Rodgers and the Jets' culture of no accountability whatsoever, and no worrying about uh, penalties or giving blame to the wrong people and all these kind of things. It's a toxic culture in New York, and I'm not sure that can be fixed quickly. So
Yeah, I think the most bothersome thing about Aaron Rodgers to me, and there's a lot, but the most bothersome thing to me is anytime a play goes sideways, whether the receiver drops the ball or fumbles or whatever it is, you name it. If you go almost always see Aaron Rodgers' face do like a come on, dude, come on, man, kind of thing every time. When a lot of times, not all the time, a lot of times Aaron Rodgers could have put the ball in a better spot, or Aaron Rodgers could have done this or that. There's been a lot of times where it's like, well, it's not all on him. It's also on you a little bit. But he just the thing that bothers me is he never takes that to himself. Um, and it doesn't sound like he does either when he's in his interviews. It just doesn't sound like it. It just really, really ticks me off about him. And that I think goes back to that kind of that his culture mixed with this culture of toxic New York. So I just hate it.
yeah, we'll talk a lot more about all of these teams and where they finished. Obviously, Black Monday just happened as well. We had three more coaches fired to join the three that had already been fired. Uh, Cody, you sent the one that surprised a lot of people with Gerard Mayo already being fired after 1 year in New England. What was the expectation, honestly? Did you think that team could compete? Like everyone knew they were going to suck, so uh, it was just weird. And then the other ones were kind of expected. That the Raiders firing Antonio Pierce was a little strange too, but the other one was there's a third one that Jacksonville firing Doug Peterson. We all knew that was going to happen about 2 months ago. So at the end of the
Mhm.
season, so. But, and that joins the Saints, Bears, and Jets with 6 openings right now. Um, I think that's it. Is it? But we're still waiting to hear from Jerry Jones whether Mike McCarthy will be coming back or not. But,
Another one that's surprising, just to me at least, is after going 10-7, the Seahawks fired their offensive coordinator after 1 year. That surprised me. I mean, as a Seahawks fan, I didn't think he did anything special, but he didn't do bad. So I thought it was interesting. So that was just one thought.
most maybe even more surprising than the coaches that were fired was that the some of the coaches that were not fired, like Brian Dable, comes back for the New York Giants after a 3-win season, getting worse and worse. But they're keeping him and the general manager for one more year. They've drafted really well. Their rookies are great, and so maybe that's why they're keeping them to hope that their their young players can lead them. But I
I
was
think
fully expecting Brian Dable to go.
I think they're hoping, yeah, hoping that Daniel Jones was the issue. Now that he's completely off the roster and moved on, I think they're going to say, "Okay, Brian, you have 5 weeks into the next season to get this figured out to be 5-0 or 4-1." I think that's kind of what their mentality is going into next year.
the third overall pick. So I don't think this is a draft class where you have 6 quarterbacks that like we did this year. I think there's maybe 2 that are going to be the kind of quality starters in this coming draft. And so picking at number 3 is a little nerve wracking in that case. So. Okay. Well, it's 8 o'clock my time, 9 yours. So we will sign off 15 minutes early. Next week, we will review the 2 playoff games in college and talk about the national championship game. We'll review the NFL playoff games and talk about the divisional round as well. So a lot of football next week too. So, all right.